The first idea I shared yesterday was Cisco. Let's see what happened there. All right, so Cisco remains in the range. The idea remains the same. And that idea, well, let's just see if we should get rid of this level here. Yeah, I don't know if I should move the level up here. I mean, it's not like I'm going to trade that level anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But I'll move it up. So just in case anybody new is watching, this is what the idea is on Cisco. Let me get my pin. All right, so basically we are looking for either a dip into the gap that fails to close the gap, comes back up, gives a higher low back into this range, and then we target equal highs there. And possibly try and hold some runners to continue to new all-time highs. If that happens, that's the first idea on Cisco. The second idea is very simply just a higher low above 119.33 to target the all-time overnight all-time high, which is 124.30. And the third idea, a very clear lower high below the gap line with a very red market and some type of bearish catalyst, you might attempt to close part of this gap to the downside. I wouldn't go for the whole thing. But the main idea here is, long ideas. Look below and fail or higher low above. So that idea from yesterday remains the same. The next idea I had on Amazon was on Amazon, and that was either 268.85 higher low long to all-time high, or 261.25 lower high to the previous all-time high. So let's knock on down to a smaller chart and see how that played out. Let's even drop to a 2-minute, see if there was a good entry on that. All right, so it looks like there was a very clean entry on it. So this is exactly, when I say lower high below, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Let me circle it right here. I am looking for a breakdown below, and then typically looking for a candle that looks just like this, inverted hammer. And then once that closes, I'm looking to go short on the break of that low, with my stop being like right up here, and my target being obviously here was the target that I shared on last night's video. So that trade very clearly did work out today. And then I don't know, I can't recall in the video yesterday if I shared or not that I am looking for 258.25 to act is the lower high. Oh, my phone is ringing, so I need to pause the video. One moment. Okay, I'm back after I was so rudely interrupted by my phone. So anyways, I'm looking for 258.25 to step up and potentially be the higher low on the daily chart for Amazon. So let's look at the daily chart and talk about exactly what that means and why I picked that level is the potential, higher low. So the reason why I'm picking this level is it's the previous all-time high. And typically what you'll see is you'll see a break over all-time highs, a pullback to the previous all-time high, and then that ends up stepping up and being the higher low on a daily chart for the uptrend to continue. So if my theory is correct, then we start looking for something like this, right? To head on back to all-time highs. And then, above for continuation of the trend. Um, just because we have all these red days, I do you really think this uptrend is just over? I mean, certainly there's been a change in character from the lockout rally that we had, but I don't see anything to suggest that that an uptrend is over. I think that there's a lot of people waiting to buy certain parts of this market, and probably Amazon being one of them, that missed out on that rally. That rally was actually had a lot of low volume from the bottom. So, you know, but one thing to make note of, I wonder if this high volume day was the very top. No, it was not. Okay. All right. Irrelevant then. Um, so what does this look like going forward? Let me just see, double check the levels that we have, see if there needs to be any updating here. There's a tiny gap left from today. So if this works out as the higher low, what'll it look like? It'd probably look like something like this if we opened in the same spot tomorrow. The first option would be pull back to 258.25, higher low over yesterday, high a day, maybe a higher low above this 263.28, and come up, hit this 20 SMA, something like that. Or let's say we open near the highs, higher low above yesterday, high a day, probably target the 20 SMA. If things are super bullish, target higher, maybe try to hold it all the way to all-time highs. I don't know, but for me, just day trading, I'd probably just try to target the 20. Um, so that idea worked out perfectly today. Next idea I shared yesterday was Intel. On Intel, according to my notes, I was looking for a higher low over 114 or a lower high below 104.75. So let's see what happened. And obviously, I would have said target the 20 SMA. Looks like it pretty much got right to it. But this morning it just broke down straight to the 20. I would have never taken any trade on this because there was never any kind of like inverted hammer candle, never any kind of higher low that I think was legitimate. Not only that, if you were going to call this a bear flag, that was happening below that level, the bear flag never broke, right? So there was never any valid setup on that. It just looked below the level. And I know I did discuss that on a video yesterday. Anytime we get a look below and fail, we just want to go the opposite way, right? So that's what happened with Intel. Trying to get my eraser, not add weird lines everywhere. Um, so going forward, what are we looking for? Well, it looks like the 20 SMA is potentially stepping up is the higher low on the daily chart. So, tomorrow, I'm assuming I'm going to go to the hourly chart and verify this trade idea here in a moment. But I'm assuming, here's my phone again. Oh my God. Okay, in last night's video, I shared the idea that a lower high below yesterday's low a day, we would target the gap top and then maybe a partial gap fill. And I said, if we look into the gap and fail, such as this, if we go into it, come back up, get a higher low back above, that would be a long setup. So let's drop down to the smaller time frame chart. We'll go with a 2-minute. See how it went down. All right. So we just really just broke right through. Well, I got yesterday's low day marked a little off here, but we just blew right through the low a day. Um, and then into the gap. Then we came out of the gap and clearly got a higher low back outside the gap. So we did look into the gap and fail, as you can see here, came back in, higher low above the gap, and then long from there. So that portion of the trade absolutely worked out. Um, Going forward on AMD, let's go to the hourly. So the question becomes now, is that all we get for a higher low on the daily chart? If so, and you can see that we've already kind of gotten inverted head and shoulders playing out right here. So if this is the higher low on the daily chart, I could definitely see it. We've already got an hour reversal pattern going. The neckline is 422.50. So at this point, if we can get a higher low above 422.50, I would think that brings us back up to the upside. Um, Now I would just trade it like this, level to level, you know? That was a really bad drawing. Just in case I'm not clear, I'll draw it again. I would personally trade it like this: a higher low above 422.50, target 439, then higher low above 439, target 457.12. And then if we do end up breaking above 457.12 with a higher low, I think there's probably a lot of shorts that have their stop loss right there, so that we could get a nice push from there. Alternatively, we could also come back into this gap, lower high below the gap. I would probably target the 20 SMA or on the daily chart. So the way I got the SMA set up is simple moving average setup is by the daily chart time frame, not by whatever your current time frame on your chart is. I only do it on a daily. So that's probably what I would target. And then if we do come into the gap, and then I wouldn't like it as much for a second time, but if we came in, got a higher low back above, I would definitely consider a long off that again. But second time around wouldn't mean quite as much. Unless, we were bouncing off the 20 SMA, then it probably would. Um, so that's what I'm thinking as far as AMD going forward. What other ideas did I share last night? I shared Walmart, which was a higher low above yesterday's high day to target the all-time high. Uh, and I know this one worked out today because I took the trade. So as you can see here on trade idea that I shared on Walmart last night, worked out well. Let me just show you a little closer. Get my pen. All right. So at open, we opened high, came back down. As you can see, I had 132 marked as a pullback long. That happened perfectly as well. Then it broke above yesterday high day, came back down, hammer candle, break of this hammer candle high, got long, target all-time high, overnight all-time high. Both of them were hit. Then once the overnight all-time high was hit, you see this head and shoulders pattern and it pulled back. So that trade worked out perfectly. Let me just look at the daily. Let me get rid of this overnight all-time high level and look at the daily chart. All right, so I would not be opposed to an idea on Walmart that looked like this. Um, Going forward, a higher low above 134.72 to bring us like a good chunk of new all-time highs to continue this trend. I think that's a very fair trade to be looking for going forward. If we get some days of consolidation that happened before that happens, I think that only makes the trade better when it does happen. It gets more people looking at it, more people waiting for the break. So I think that's a pretty decent trade idea going forward. And let me mark it. And set an alert. All right, so let's go back and look at SPY and take a look at what happened here today. So on SPY, we're still holding this neckline. So we're not totally bearish over here yet.
Be sure to like,
Do we
subscribe,
start
and check
to
us out on
recover,
YouTube
come
for
back,
actionable trade
then
plans,
come down
trade
and get a lower
ideas,
high
and market
below,
insights
like
that you
create a
won't
head
want
and
to miss.
shoulders pattern, something like this? You know, I could see that. We move up, then come back down, get the lower high below, then come back and fill the gap. Could happen. Also, that's just like thinking ahead quite a bit though. For the immediate future, what I'd be looking for, let's go to the hourly. For the immediate future, we're still just waiting for this. Do we get a clear lower high below 732.25? And at this point, if that did happen tomorrow, I would only be targeting the top of this gap just because the 20 SMA is catching up and I don't want to try and trade short into that thing because buyers could step up on that. So that could happen, or it could also look like this. We get that lower high, fill this gap, break below the 20 SMA, then come back in, reclaim this level. And then if we reclaim that and then come in and we also end up reclaiming this level, 732.25, then I would think that confirms that that would be the higher low on the daily chart, and we look for continuation from there. So there's a couple different paths with that. Alternatively, what if we get this just to look below the level, come back in, higher low above? I would get long on that. My first target being 735, then 740.5. If that happens, 740.5 does step in, is a pretty key level. Do sellers step back in right there and bring us in for a head and shoulders type pattern? Or do we just simply recover over that? I think the answer to that question is probably going to come with whatever happens with NVIDIA earnings and how the market reacts to NVIDIA earnings. So that's two things we're looking for. The key levels here are 732.25 and 740.50. Bounce on over to QQQ. QQQ, I mean, really just looked below this level and failed today. It just barely came below the 696.65 or whatever and failed. So we pull the chart to the left over here on the 5-minute. Came in, got a hammer candle right off. You could have gone long off that inverted hammer candle, whatever. Let's go back to the hourly. All right. So we've already got an obvious head and shoulders pattern here. Everybody and their mothers and their brothers sees it, right? So going forward, do we get this? Lower high, clear lower high below 696.65. Target gap top tomorrow if that happens. Or do we get something like this? Higher low above 714.25 is still kind of where I'd be interested in taking it if it happened. Or look below the level and fail again, or just range in this level until NVIDIA earnings. Not an unreasonable outcome. All right. And let's go through some other charts now. Okay, we're looking at Chevron here because I was able to catch a trade on Chevron today. I did just uh someone online had posted this double bottom pattern here and shown that it closed above it yesterday. So I noticed that this morning before market open and was looking for a long above yesterday high a day, which a perfect setup did happen and I did take it. Um, so I mean I did all right on that trade. It wasn't like massive, but I got some money out of it. It was cool. Um, just took the break of this flag right here basically and just wrote it out. There is an open gap right here. I don't know why it scrolled all the way left here. All right, so there was an open gap today on Chevron. Obviously, oil is up, so it has a catalyst. Um, okay. So the gap did basically fill today. So, how do I trade this going forward? Let's switch to the hourly. Because I still think this is a pretty decent breakout going on right here. Okay, so let me look left. Just trying to think of the best way to trade this thing going forward. It might not be a terrible trade if, like tomorrow, it pulled back to this 196.15 level and we saw buyers step it up to come in and target like 250 cents. If, you can get like a 2-minute hammer candle right here and oil still remains elevated, maybe I would take the break of that 2-minute hammer candle off that level. Something like that. Not a terrible trade. I mean, I'll put it in my notes. I don't know if I'm particularly going to trade that. CBX pullback long. All right. Let's just start looking through the mags and see what we can find. All right, NVIDIA has earnings tomorrow, so I don't think trading NVIDIA on earnings day is the best idea. Probably not going to do that. But, going forward, the ideal location for a higher low for NVIDIA is clearly this 216.83. So does it touch it tomorrow and then earnings brings this way back up here? I mean, I know that's the hope. Is that the way it's going to go down? No, who knows? Let's just move on to other charts since they have earnings. Microsoft. Microsoft looked above this level and failed today, causing a big short. So I don't got much to say for Microsoft then right now. Nothing that I want to trade there. Google. Potential reversal pattern forming. All right. Well, if things are going to be bearish in the market, I don't think this, well, how do you do this? A lower high below 384.30. I don't want to short into this 20 SMA to target that. And then any clear lower high with bearish catalysts with red market internals targets top of the gap, all this thin structure over here. Alternatively, we could end up seeing something like this. Let's say we saw this, came in, lower high, tapped the 20, comes right back up, higher low, back above 384.30. I will get long on that. Probably my first target being 392.80. Let's just look at the hourly chart and make sure our levels are looking good. Just trying to decide if I want to move this level down to 391.50. Let me see. I think I do. Yeah. All right. So on Google, lower high short, not to the gap, but to 20 SMA or to 380.7, or look below this level and fail long. I think that would be a great trade, B plus A, whatever. So that's key level. And this level becomes two possibilities here. A higher low long here or a pullback short. And what I mean by that is we could see a push up here in the morning, and then it bounces right back off, comes back down, targets this, or just a higher low above here with like green market internals. I would be looking to come through and do like a thin structure retracement, retracing all this thin structure right here. So with green internals, kind of a green market open tomorrow and a higher low above 391.50, I would look to do a thin structure retracement to at least 395.70. So that's what I'm looking for on Google. And I think these trades are not bad. Set alerts. Something I do want to watch tomorrow. All right, moving on. Let's take a look at Apple. Again, still holding, still bullish, still near all-time highs, but also setting up a potential reversal pattern that we just need to be aware of, you know, because we have this higher, a higher high, higher low, higher high, then a lower low, and a potential for a lower high, which creates the head and shoulders pattern, which is a sign of a reversal at times. Could be a setup, could be a bear trap type thing too as well, right? So do we get this tomorrow? That's not a trade for me. I wouldn't take that to there. Lower high below here, clear lower high with bearish things going on in the market. I might take a short level to level on that. We're going to have to see what's below us here in a second. Or, better yet, attempt low, fails, come back in, higher low, back above, target the long, right? I like the failure. The failure patterns always are nicer trades, always. And they happen quite a bit. So yeah, but if we do come down tomorrow and things are bearish, here's how it goes. Lower high below 294.80, first target 291.75, lower high below that is target 288.62. 288.62, if we go to the daily chart, is the previous all-time high and also the place where we are looking for a higher low on the daily chart if we do pull back through that. So, if we do pull back, we're looking for some type of reversal pattern to go back long and come target equal all-time highs, right? And I'll also note that yes, on the hourly chart, we do have that threat of a pattern, but if we look over here on the daily chart, what do you see here other than a bull flag, right? So on the higher time frame here, this is just a bull flag. And the whatever the last way I could see Apple going, other than just continuing to range in here. Little higher low above 315, target equal all-time highs. I think going forward into tomorrow, it's not the worst chart to be watching tomorrow. I'll probably put it on my list of charts I'm watching tomorrow, depending on what else is going on. So let's just make sure everything's marked correctly. All right. So lower high, clear, lower high short to previous all-time high, or look below and fail long E plus. Or higher low long here, B minus. And if we pull back to here and get a clear setup on the previous all-time high, 288.62, you can see I already got that marked, is an A minus. Set another alert here. I have like a bad memory, so I have to like write everything on my charts so that when I'm looking in a day, like I don't have to go, what was supposed to happen here? I just have it all right there, so there's no question. All right. The less I have to think about when it's time to execute, in my opinion, the better. Go over to Meta. Looks like Meta did rotate the entire bounce range, finished rotating the bounce range today. So, is that still what I would consider the bounce range? Or is it a little further down now, like here? I think that's the better answer at this point. So here's what we're looking for on Meta. I'm definitely going to be watching this one. If there is a clear lower high below 675. I think that's fair for a short. targets top of the gap. If, alternatively, we break this level, but come back in with a higher low back above, I think we rotate this bounce range right on back up to here. 617. Great trade. Also, if that first trade I did works out, and then we come back down here and actually get a lower high into the gap, come in, target at least this much of a fill, there is a level there. If not, the entire thing. So the way I would do that is on here, I'm buying several contracts. I'm selling some halfway down, selling some more here. And then if we get a lower high here, I'm selling some halfway down, selling some more, closing position. Okay, that's the way I would do it. And then always, of course, if and when we're back up to this top side of the bounce range, higher lows above, top of the gap, same thing, just opposite sides, right? Or look above and fail, back, shorts us back to the bottom of the bounce range. And if the first one works out, higher low above, in the gap, to start looking for some gap fill. We always got to be aware of our simple moving averages. They could mess with stuff up there, but same concept on either side of this bounce range, gaps above and below. Definitely a chart I want to be watching tomorrow since we're close to one end of the bounce range. Let's look at, man, I don't know if I even want to look at Tesla. Let's see. Well, I mean, not bad. Okay. Tesla pulled back to 396.50 and gave us a hammer candle right on top of the 20 SMA right there. We are below the 200 SMA. I'm not going to trade Tesla. I always find Tesla like super volatile and dangerous. But higher low above 200 SMA, maybe target 415.25. I'm going to move on. Palantir. I don't even know if I want to look at that. It's been junk forever. Come on. Nah, I'm good. AVGO, I don't want to look at that. Junk. Let's look at MU. So this is interesting that happened on MU here today. Yesterday we broke the neck, came down, hit this previous all-time high, broke down. Now we broke back above. Do we reclaim this level tomorrow? I think is the real key question here. I think this is a key, very key level at this point. On MU, can we reclaim 714.50, clear higher low above? Target gap bottom, probably more if all that does happen, and SMH is moving with it. To continue this uptrend. What are the alternative paths here? It's a main one I'm watching out for. Alternatively, lower high there. Target 20 SMA, maybe. I'm probably not going to take that. The only trade I'm like this isn't the only thing that could happen on MU, but the only thing that I'm like pretty interested in is if we can get a clean higher low above this 717.50, and SMH is recovering as well. So while we're there, let's look at SMH. So obviously yesterday, SMH also broke the neckline, came into this gap. Look at that. Perfectly touched the 20 SMA, bounced right off of it, looked into the gap and failed. I mean, that's all bullish. So tomorrow, do we bounce back down, then come back in, get a higher low above this very key 546.15? Then if this is happening on SMH tomorrow, then and that MU trade that we just went over is also occurring, I mean, count me into that. Absolutely. I think that's definitely something I would want to do. There is just a little minor level right here that could offer an alternate way to get into this in case it opens like here or something, or you miss this part, then an alternate way to get in. A higher low above 551, whatever. But I do find it compelling that we bounced right off the 20 SMA, didn't close the entire gap, came and gave in a nice recovery today. I do think that is all pretty compelling. Where do I lose faith in all this is if we come back in and get a lower high below the bottom of this original gap, then I think at that point, the next key level that comes into play is 509.75. All right, so that's definitely whenever you're trading MU, AMD, NVIDIA, Intel, whatever, you want to be watching SMH and knowing what's going on with that. All right, moving forward, AMD, I think we already covered. Intel, I think we already covered. Amazon, I think we already covered. Walmart, we already covered. Let's see what's going on with Oracle, maybe. Yeah. So Oracle has pulled back to the 20 SMA. We do have a potential topping pattern threat again right here. So obviously we also have thin structure over here on the left-hand side. If we do lose this level, lose the 20 SMA tomorrow, and things are bearish, we're looking for some type of retrace. Could be a little minor level right here to be aware of, around 174. What else could happen? We could also obviously look below this level, come back in, higher low back above, fail the level, come back up. Otherwise, if neither of those two happen, I think those are the only two ways I'd want to execute a trade here, because otherwise, you're just looking for like consolidation and flagging going on here until eventually there's a higher low above 198.65, which becomes the trade I want to take if the consolidation continues in between these levels. But Oracle is worth watching for 180.50 on a lower high or look below and fail. I want to see what's going on with Coinbase. The only reason I want to see is because I'm waiting to see if we can get a breakout above 212, right? Waiting to see if we can get that. But with things going on with interest rates and Bitcoin really not wanting to do a rally, this trade's been hard to happen. but there is an alternate trade here that would probably also be requiring Bitcoin to be in like basically crash mode. And that trade is, this is actually just a bear pennant, and a good lower high below that to come in and target the equal lows. I drew that a little low, but to target the equal lows over here, right? Or what's the other thing that we could see? What if it breaks below, fails, comes back in, to rotate this range back to 212? Something to think about on Coinbase. Doesn't look like any of those things are probably going to happen tomorrow, right? We'll look at TSM. TSM is at the bottom of a bounce range. So a couple ways that this continues. Bounce range just continues. Lower high below the bounce range. Target 50 SMA. Or a look below the bounce range and fail, higher low back inside to rotate the bounce range again until eventually we get a clean breakout over 419.50. I think that's all I've got tonight. Make sure you like, subscribe, follow, comment. Watch these trade ideas tomorrow. See how they work out. Much of what I say at night kind of depends on what happens in markets overnight, but that's why it's not a terrible idea to be following on X or Facebook or something. Sometimes I'll throw stuff out in the morning and pre-market related. I am out. Have a good one. Focus on risk management, keeping your accounts green. You don't have to trade every day. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow, and check out our YouTube for trade ideas, trade plans, and market actionable insights you will not want to miss.